Okay. Are we live? I think we're live. All right. Well, this is a interesting feeling. Moderation helps everyone feel safe. Build a positive live chat experience for you and your viewers. Choose who you can participate. Send delay between messages. How to put people in time limits. Moderator steel channel. Okay, cool. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guide your privacy and abide by your community guidelines. Okay. Whenever I become, embrace myself. That's the stash looking. Very good. Very good. All right. Welcome to the chat. Please be kind. Please keep it cute. Please rewind, and be kind and rewind. Please keep it cute. Please be kind and rewind. Please be kind and rewind. Okay, there we go. Oh, look at that. So cool. All right. Right. So, that's right. Okay, yes. So, we're going now. So you treat it as a thing, and if people join, so you kind of just talk as if you were talking. Okay, so let's just make sure I'm able to zone in. Oh, okay. Well, so what I was thinking of, I've been thinking about doing live streams for a while, and the medium, I think you can call it a medium, right? It's a medium of sorts. It's always kind of interested me, and so I've been kind of like, dilly dallying, about it, because I was like thinking, it's still a pretty new small channel, so I was like, oh, okay, is this justified to do things like live streams? But I kept thinking about, trying it, and it could be fun, and another thing to do if I got some free time and all that. So, and then I was I was looking it up, tips and tricks and such for people live stream and wanted to do this kind of thing. And the recommends was like, just do it. If no one's live stream as if nobody's watching, because nobody's watching, right? And so that was enough. That's all the encouragement incentive I needed. And yeah, so I thought, okay, cool. Why don't we give it a shot, even just to kind of like test it out and just kind of get comfortable with, this is not the usual background. That's a different room. So because just kind of testing it out and seeing how this would even work. Doing this from a little nook here, little nookie spot that we have one of the computers. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to turn my phone off, possibly. Getting all these. Oh here. Yeah, I'll respond to that later. Okay. So yeah, I mean the theme this time was really just to kind of try it out and see what this is, how it feels, and but I thought also I could just kind of start off with like a kind of a light, chill kind of topic, because some of the topics I've chosen so far for the channel have varied from, in terms of like, I don't know, in terms of like controversial-ish, or kind of a bit heated, a bit political, that kind of thing. So I thought maybe just kind of started off first with just a light one, more light, you know. So I was thinking movies would be the main thing, partly because I could talk about movies for, if I'm allowed to, a long time, and you know, then it's kind of it's a good way to kind of have something going on that I don't really have to plan too much, think about too hard, kind of just riff on. But again, doesn't get too crazy, too intense. Hopefully. Um, yeah, how long have we been going for? 5 minutes. Look at that. Yeah. Yeah. So movies. Oh man, I need to go back into movies because I've actually been kind of not doing the movie thing for a while, doing things like YouTube more. Right? Go figure. Partly the channel, focusing on that, but also just watching too much of other people's YouTube. I wonder if there's a way I could start this. Welcome to Skeptical Monday Musings with me, the skeptic, who's well-meaning, the well-meaning one. Yeah, I don't know if this really necessarily needs an official kind of intro or something. I don't know. I wonder also how the audio and everything is going. I might have to delete this after because, I might listen back and just using the no microphone or a computer microphone and just the webcam. So I was told that that's fine. You don't need nothing special, and I'm not big on the having special stuff necessarily, right? So hopefully it'll be okay. But who knows? Maybe this has not been picked up at all because I don't see that microphone. No, mute. Okay, there's a green light there, so I think we're okay. Yeah, I mean, the point of this live stream, the point of the channel, right? Let's get back to that, I guess. Oh my God, the lighting. I'll be right back. This is so yellow. Let's see if I can. Might add some harsh shadows. Oh yeah, that's a bit. Yeah. How about now? How about now? Still a bit shadowy. If I kind of sit like this, can pretty much hide it. It's gonna be awkward. Don't know if there's much I can do about that. Yeah. It's fine. This is a test anyway. I'm just gonna delete it. I'm just gonna toss it in the bin anyway. Right? Probably what I should do. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'll still try and make this like a. Yeah. The point of the live stream is just another way, I guess, to add to this project, this channel, which is really just wanting to. It's for me, It's like to create a space where I can share. It's a very fulfilling thing to especially if you're someone that can't help but love constantly overthinking things all the time. You spend most of your waking hours just that's what I do for a living. I wish I could do for a living. Maybe it's is just thinking too much about everything, and so and I think there's a lot of other people out there that like that same thing. What if I excuse me for a second. Maybe that's better. Is that any different? No, not really. Let's move this up a bit. There we go. In the frame a bit more. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'll be able to use any of this necessarily for clips or anything. I don't know. But yeah, like anything, I like to kind of just jump right in and figure it out as I go, Um, but yeah, kind of just, I think I think like a lot of people, I'm pretty tired of how discourse is online and in person. I mean, people kind of now seem to mirror, or reflect the way people talk online now in person, and it's just so boring, honestly. Like all the way political discussions are had and everything. I find it very tedious, and very unhelpful, very unproductive. Um, one nice thing about conversation being such a with podcasts and things now being so people just having conversation and interesting discussions. Anybody can do it. It's really decentralized. That you know, what freedom of expression, freedom of speech, whatever conversations about anything, ideas can permeate easier, which I think is really cool in a lot of ways. Um, the downside, I think, with that in this situation that we happen to find ourselves in is that then of course you can monetize it, which is interesting that like some people their job is just like, I mean, people have had those jobs for a little while where it's just um you just have discussions, like there's been those, I forget his name now. Oh, it's at the tip of my brain, but there was a documentary about it. Gore Vidal, like that guy, his whole job basically was just to like have debates and things. And but I think it's really cool that anyone can just kind of start this thing now, because I think everyone has a voice that's worth being heard. I do think so. I mean, when people would say, "Oh, well, some people just because they just have no helpful thoughts or opinions on things." Sure, maybe. I think I think why it's good that everyone's voice can be heard is because, well, not everyone learns to kind of know how to responsibly share that, I suppose. But I think overall, it's still better to allow everyone to be heard than not. It can be frustrating at times, of course. Comes with the territory. Everything has its ups and downs. You bring a good thing in, and it comes with its downsides, right? But I think overall, this is going to be very. I realize with these live streams that it's going to be very tangential. Um, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's the point of these things. Maybe that's why I wanted to do this in the first place. It's just so I can let my brain, you know, do its thing. But yeah, what was I going with that? I feel like I'm gonna need like to not eat before I do these things, or like overeat before I do these things, or like have some coffee or something because it's cold too. Yeah, where was I going with that? Anyway, uh, why did I want to do this? Um, because I think there's not enough. Be the channel you want to see in the world, right? And I don't think there's enough places that are really trying to get away from like monetizing us versus them. Culture war. The thing of the culture war, it's a war, really, in many respects, like any other. That's why it's called a culture war. Right? But like, it kind of operates, I think, very much the same. Yeah, no, it's not with guns, but like there are people benefiting off it, and there are people benefiting off it happening forever, like perpetuating the war. The same way conventional wars, there are people benefiting from keeping conventional wars going. There are people benefiting from having culture wars continue to go. You know, and so I guess this is for me my way of kind of helping, not to like push back against, like, not to end the culture war. I don't think that's necessarily. I don't know how that would end. I don't know. There's always been culture war. It's more Is it more monetizable? Maybe because I mean, I don't know. It feels very much like it's a new kind of culture war that's going on now. But I do think it's because there's only really proxy wars going on right now in terms of real conventional wars. And then some people could say, "Oh, it's because humans always need conflict." I don't know if humans always need conflict. I think you can grow from conflict. I think you can grow from resistance. No, resistance is bad. Tension? No. you need conflict. Conflict makes for good stories. Um, Without conflict, there isn't much of a story. So then, I think about that a lot often with like, if we were to somehow create some kind of utopia where there's very little conflict apart from the conflict inevitably that would come about from interpersonal conflict, fighting over the same boy or girl, dating and whatnot, and sports competition and that kind of thing, that kind of, but apart from that, very little conflict. Everyone has all their needs met, basic and otherwise, in the world. Everyone is quite peaceful and able to just read and walk in the sun and exercise and play games and, you know, learn and journal and reflect and hang out with people all the time. They could just have like endless time to, get to know their old friends better, make new friends. In a world like that, somehow, um, you know, people would say, "Oh, there still always needs to be conflict," and I, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe art would become less interesting in a world like that. Although, to be honest, are we going to have interesting art a couple of years from now? Even in the conflict-ridden world that we have now. Oh, here we can cycle back to movies. There we go. We found our way back. Uh, yeah, are we going to have interesting art a few years from now, even in a very conflict filled world with AI and whatnot? Because I think it's getting good. It's getting crazy. I'm watching these Star Wars AI videos. I like them, even the ones where the lips are ripped out, and then they're kind of like it's pretty, but like it's still they kind of look like the people, it's pretty high def, that kind of thing, high fidelity and all and whatnot. Uh, yeah, I find them entertaining, you know. Um, and that's the thing, right? It's like we kind of need to be like, explore some stories that aren't really touched on, or like, yeah, make that a little short little video, yeah, I don't know. I saw a thing that was like, the death of Hollywood in terms of, like just movies aren't being made very much. So a lot of people are out of work and like the studios are vacant and all this kind of stuff. The sets are, the lots are not inhabited, and that might be exaggerated a bit. Maybe it was a bit clickbaity. I'm not sure about the truth because I've never been, but I could see it. I could see that. That I don't know. It's it's interesting because on one end, things are changing so fast every day. AI, for example, like just we know AI is evolving very quickly in all aspects, but you can see it even just in the slop. The slop is getting good very quickly every day, and like it's so interesting. I feel this kind of like limbo numbness, and I wonder hmm, if that's the feeling of day to day. My I kind of more or less do the same kind of stuff. Nothing grand is taking place in my life, but like it it's like this weird. It's kind of like one of those rides when you're kind of with a centrifugal force spinning around really fast, and you're kind of being held in the like on the ceiling, and you're just kind of being held against the wall. Kind of feels like that. Um, where it's like you're not moving, but you're really moving. Yeah, that's actually yeah, it's kind of that's how it feels. It's like you are not you're not moving it away because you're plastered against the, but you're spinning. You yeah, that's how I think it's how it feels. Um, in the world because the world, technology, AI, society, and everything, uh, all those factors spinning us around really quick, and we're just kind of like holding on. We can't even really like peel ourselves off, but we're just like along for the spinning ride, And at least with that one, it kind of ends after a couple minutes, and this one we're kind of just been plastered on the wall for who knows how long, um So yeah, there we go. Move more over here. Um, yeah, and I don't know, because I talk to people about this kind of stuff. I Uber as a way of paying bills, and so I interact with a lot of different folks, which I normally wouldn't. Otherwise, wouldn't you get matched up with people that you just otherwise would have no reason to interact with, really, apart from just like random happenstance. Right? And yeah, and so I have those kind of conversations with people where it's like that feeling of listlessness, floating aimlessly. Things are, because I don't know if humans again could really handle this impending change that's incremental yet so impactful and fast at the same time. I just think, I wonder if anyone else can kind of like, I know for me, my brain is just not really handling it all too well. I think that it creates, or maybe it's not, maybe it's something else that's causing this. Maybe it's too many late nights, doom scrolling, and it's other kind of things, bad habits and things that are kind of causing that for me. Could be that, fair. I don't know exactly, but yeah, I don't know. And again, it kind of blows my mind that everything just feels, maybe just everyone's bracing for impact. I think that's got to be it, because like it just feels like all these things are happening so fast and like no one's talking about, everyone is like, I mean, there's so many conversations about AI and about all the other existential risks, um, and what was that? But it feels like, I don't know. People are talking about it, but it doesn't feel like, it just feels like we're stuck. We're frozen. Culture's stuck. In terms of like what's being produced, it's remakes and rehashes and that. And I guess politics also feels like it's pretty stagnant considering what's going on, what we're facing. It feels like a lot of the same old, like, oh, we gotta, worry about the budget and, the debt and, and it's like we're, while, potentially like 2 years from now, you know, AI might just like make us all obsolete. Like it's just a weird, and that's where either those in power do know what AI is going. I don't think so. I don't. Some people probably have some way they're trying to steer it, but I guess everyone's just bracing for impact. But we can't really say that. It's like, I guess they don't want people to freak out. I wish, like, let people freak out a bit. Like governments just be like, you know what, we're trying to brace for this. We don't know how AI, when it really gets going, we don't know how it's going to change things. So we're just kind of going to wait and watch. That would freak people out. But I don't know. I think sometimes us all just like waiting in limbo. I don't know if that's better than freaking out. You know what I mean? I know people prefer the orderliness over the freaking out, but I think there's a time and a place to freak out, and maybe what I mean. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe other people aren't freaking out. I talked to a guy who was in robotics. He was helping. His thing was like helping students design robots for competitions and things. And I was talking to him about robotics and AI, and even just 5 years in the future. Because like 5 years ago, what is it? COVID, right? And like it was a weird period, a lot of changes and transitions and stuff. But if you go from like COVID to now, you're like, okay, well, we got out of the pandemic. People work from home a bit more. There's more inflation, but overall, and then now we've introduced this AI thing, ChatGPT and other ways that it does stuff. And it's like, okay, but that was still that 5-year period, like, still feels, but I don't know, like 5 years from now, maybe it'll be the same thing. Maybe it's a little overblown how AI will change things. And so I'll look back 5 years from now, look back to now, or 5 years in the future, I'll look back to now and be like, okay, yeah, it was a similar kind of change. There's some things that changed, but overall we're kind of going steady. I don't know. It's just mm, mm, you just feel. Actually, I was talking to a guy yesterday about this. Maybe this will be part of my live stream. I'll just share my like Uber experiences. Picked up a guy, and we got into it pretty quick, short enough trip. But he was saying he's born in the '80s, so he remembers the glory days, right? When early video gaming was very exciting. I get it. Video games at that period was kind of like music at a certain point where it just felt like every year new people were trying new things, and it was very exciting because it's like, what could we achieve with the new generation? And you know, I think that's the thing too with everything, games, music, movies. We're all reaching this point where it's like games, the graphic wise, what you can do, it seems to have slowed. Now it probably is still improving, maybe even exponentially, but it feels like, okay, here's another kind of realistic looking video game where the people look like people and pretty good, a lot of good polygons on the face and all that. Um, and I mean, maybe I'm not looking too closely into recent games and things, but it feels like, it's just kind of, oh, they just look lifelike now. They're just kind of like movies. And there's some cool games out there, I guess, coming out, but I don't know. It just feels like, okay, yeah, games are becoming more like movies. Movies are becoming more like games. Music is kind of in this place where, you know, there's no heavier metal being made from what, in the sense that like everything is so kind of, we're used to it now. Like I can see, people, there's like an ad, it's an advertisement of, uh, I don't know, college age woman, playing this metal riff and being like, oh, using this AI tool or whatever, it helps me create this metal song or whatever, Sona or whatever. And that's an advertisement for like, it's like a pretty heavy riff. And it's just wild that like, we've all kind of heard it now. We've heard the EDM, we've heard and not to say there isn't some interesting new music being made, but it's like, where do you go in terms of all the genres are kind of almost like pastiche at this point. I think that's the right word, pastiche. Let me look at it. I think that's the word I'm looking for, where it's just kind of like, it all feels from like a bygone time, you know what I mean? So it's like to use it now kind of feels like, like you're not really in the modern, yeah, imitation of another work. Like it's all kind of like, oh, if you're playing guitar, it's like I feel like playing some Metallica type, put that level of distortion on, that type of style kind of thing. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's making any sense. But everything is a replica of a replica. Maybe people have felt this way in the 1800s, where they felt like nothing new was being made. I do definitely not want to fall into that trap of feeling like, you know, of the mistake of forgetting that a lot of these things um, aren't new in terms of the issues over, if you want to make an interesting original piece of art. I think there's always that feeling of, is this worth anything at all? Is this, just derivative, too derivative to be worth continuing and to put out there and everything? And yeah, like that's something that I usually push back a lot against, when people talk about, oh, we're getting to the point with AI where we won't be able to know what's real and what's not. It's going to make news really difficult. People won't be able to agree on, that this politician didn't actually say that, or did they? You're always going to be questioning, is this even real news? And that does worry me. Although I actually agree with something I was watching Yanis Varoufakis. He was I guess he's a political commentator now. He was like the Greek finance minister, I think, for a little while, and he was making this point about the upside. Of course, there's a lot of downsides to getting to the point where no one can trust anything because we're not sure if it's real or not, if it actually happened or not. But he was saying that at least the upside of that can bring on a sense where we get back to, he used some kind of cool Greek word that I wish I could remember the name of it, but basically means like like freedom of assembly, but it's also, I might be able to actually kind of remember Greek word for like freedom of assembly. This is what's great about the internet, for freedom of assembly. Is it gonna come? Is it gonna figure it out? The one I'm thinking of, Eleutheria or ecclesia. No. Oh, isonomia. Is it isonomia? Is that what I'm thinking? I don't know if that's it. Anyway, it's a cool Greek word, and he said that it actually, the original meaning was kind of more interesting than the one that's commonly used. Is that it kind of means taking an argument based purely off the merits of its argument, not based off the personality, who said it, what it's aligned with, what's branded with, like, because right now a lot of opinion and beliefs and ideologies and ideas is connected to, oh well, this is this person's writing, and it's they're an existentialist, or they're a liberal, or they're what have you, right? uh, you know, neo-colonial, whatever. Um, and if we can't really, if we question like, well, did that actually come from it? Then we don't have to have this like, okay, well, this person said it, and I agree with this person because I like this person's personality, or I think they're smart, or I think they're just in the right, and so because they said it, I'm not even going to think too much on whether I agree with it or not. I'm just going to, support it, go along with it, And Yanis's point was that, and we'll get back to a point where merit actually is the most important thing, and that could be great because then it could mean that any old idea, if it just the perfect marketplace of ideas, right? The free market of ideas, right, would actually flourish in the sense that, yeah, it's all just because you have to just ignore like, well, I can't be sure that that's what this president, this prime minister, or this politician said, or this writer, or whatever. And I do kind of like that. Like, at times it can be annoying when you're not really sure if something's true or not. But I, as someone who likes to be skeptical of things, I like the idea that we're all going to have to be forced to do that. Be constantly like, well, I don't know if that's real or not, so let's actually just talk about it. Because also, and this is going back to like, remembering how the past was in terms of, it's like even in the past, it's not like you could really necessarily be sure what's real, what's not. I mean, they use different methods. It reminds me of George Orwell, I'm a big fan of. Shout out. I don't know. Do you shout out people that are dead? I don't know. But he deserves a shout out, I think. He was talking about how, was it Homage to Catalonia, how he was on the front in the war, and he would find, I think at one point he got sent back because of injuries, so he was reading newspapers that were talking about what was going on in the war back home in England, and he would find a lot of the stuff was just didn't happen. It was made up. They said, oh, these people won when they didn't, or these people attacked when they didn't, and I mean, the people back at home, they're none the wiser. How are they going to? So it didn't really matter. The newspapers, they'd spin it however. So ever since there's been written word, probably since before there's been written word, probably people were making stuff up when they were just telling stories. Well, we know that, isn't it? I mean, that's the storytelling. People would make up myths and legends, or they would, build up their legends, their own personal legends more, or was it Eric the Red would be like, let's go to Iceland, it's nice there. And people are like, it's called Iceland though. Are you sure? He's like, trust me. And then it's all kind of icy, Wait a minute. No, he called it Iceland so people wouldn't go there. And then was it Leif Erikson that called it Greenland so that people would go there, but it's quite even icier. So something like that. You get my point. A lot of we've always been struggling with knowing what's true. And yes, of course, like this oh, you can really see the lines, forehead lines with this lighting. Ooh, look at that. Okay. Yeah, so, here's just a new kind of thing where we're like, okay, well, because I'll see some stuff now of like, Trump saying something. And I'm like, there's something kind of off. He's kind of just off in general. Like he's just kind of, like I'm like something. It's kind of hard to know. He could be saying stuff anyways, but like there's certain like mannerisms that I'm like, that seems not quite human, but it's also again like hard to say. Well, what is, especially for him, like, well, what is human or not? Like maybe he would do some kind of weird like twitchy or kind of facial expression like that. Mhm. So but I watched something he was doing recently, and I was thinking, like, at this point, like it's hard to know, and I question it. But again, same things. It's the same issue. Like I think some people are more worried about it because they wanted to believe that there was a point when you could be more confident as to what happened and what didn't. But I believe the truth is that you couldn't. News was always fabricated or filtered to some degree or another, and so before you had one or two news outlets saying things however they wanted to frame it, and everyone agreed on that, but then the framing might also have been fabricated. So like there was never necessarily like people were never really informed. Um I don't know. In some ways, I feel like the AI dystopia or revolution, it'll be revolutionary in a way, right? Really churning things up, really flipping things on their head, right? Uh, in a lot of ways, the new incoming AI stuff scares the bejesus out of me. The bejeebus, totally, all the bejeebus is right out of me because of AI. More than I think it is for some people, which is confusing because I'm like, how is no one like constantly thinking about this 24/7? I feel like I do, you know. And then in other ways, I actually feel more calm about it, just because I'm thinking first of all, I feel like we need something. We need something to get us out of this rut we're in because it's quite a rut. I think we're all feeling very rutted right now, very in the ruts, and so I think we need something, so something, little something, something, or big something, just something, like where the part of me that's okay with AI, kind of doing its thing, is that um, you know, because it always kind of bothered me that. Sorry, I kind of had to reboot there. um, it always kind of bothered me that you know governments, for example, I have my you try and figure out why, but like their motives, but you wonder to yourself like why are they resistant to trying things like say now basic income, all the elites want basic income, but because they're gonna lose their jobs, but before that, since the 70s, basic income has been a thing talked about. And you wonder why. Just give it a shot. If it's really not giving you the results you want, you can stop it. You do it with other programs. There's plenty of other programs that you'll scrap it when it doesn't feel like it's working. So just do nationwide basic income for 2 years and see how it goes. And they won't do it. And people will be like, "Well, because we still haven't done enough studies on it." It's like, just do it. And if it really gets out of hand, then you really step in. Governments have no problem stepping in hard when they feel like it it calls for that to really step in. You know, So, you know, um, I think it's because they just don't want to give people the idea that it's like, oh, we could be doing this thing. You know, I think the system runs a lot on fear. You got to keep people constantly afraid of going homeless, losing their job, losing their, the seeing being seen as unproductive. What would the neighbors think? It's funny, like that's something I feel like you don't. Do you hear that as much anymore? Occasionally, you hear people. I guess if you live in the suburbs and stuff, where you have to care more about neighbors, and fair enough. But it's like I feel like people don't care as much anymore more about what would the neighbors think because people don't even know their neighbors. You know what I mean? It's this weird shift where back in the day, people did know their neighbors more, and so there was more concern about what would the neighbors think. Also, just more concern, I guess, over social convention and following the norms and whatnot. So I think partly people maybe care less about what would the neighbors think because they don't know who their neighbors are. So it's kind of hard to care what people who you don't know from what they think. But also, yeah, the conventions have gotten looser. So I think is good. I go back and forth onto a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it feels like society has taken a dip. It's gone a little downhill, right? But in other ways, I do like that saying of like this. What is it? It's not better or worse. It's just different. And there's no solutions but trade-offs, only trade-offs, right? And I think that's kind of very applicable because, yeah, in a lot of ways, things have gotten worse. People are lonelier, more isolated, poorer, um, more confused, desperate, sicker in a lot of ways, just sicker. Indoors more, eating worse, not getting good sleep, not getting exercise, all the health conditions. But on the other hand, by certain metrics, things are better. You know, I think globalization brings a lot of problems, but I think it does also like the there's obviously still prejudice and bigotry and conflict that way, but I does also just feel that people are much more lax because now that we have the internet and you see the wackiest stuff all the time, and all generations are used to it now. Like that's an interesting kind of shift, I guess. Is when the internet was first coming out, older people were still used to reading, I don't know, Hagar the Horrible in the newspaper, and they weren't exposed to the internet, you know. And now, you know, boomer types in my family that I know, they're more on the screens than I am. They've got the TV going and they're on their phones scrolling, sending all manner of Instagrams and so they are exposed to this stuff more. So I do feel like there's become a more like accepted because now people are almost rewarded by being weird and unconventional and eccentric and shocking. And again, there's downsides to that. It means it encourages people to just do dumb things just for the chance of being viral or getting famous. That's a problem. Upside is, there isn't the same kind of, ooh, you're acting kind of weird, like what would the neighbors think? Because it's like, well, everyone seems to kind of have this. Like I remember even before early internet, the whole screech owling thing, or the planking phenomenon, open Gangnam style, all those kinds of trends. I think were an outlet for people that normally felt very confined, like they didn't feel comfortable to kind of let loose, be silly. They could do it that way, and that was a socially acceptable way to be wacky. Wasn't really my thing. Seemed a bit uninspired, but for some people it was enough of an outlet for them. You know, and but now maybe those same. There's always going to be people that enjoy watching people do wacky zany things and wouldn't themselves. Fair enough, but there seems to be that like understanding that it's because it's kind of encouraged now. You're used to seeing influencer type of people trying to filming themselves in public. And you're just kind of like, oh, okay, maybe they're doing a bit. Like it's also kind of things have been democratized in terms of entertainment. Anyone now could try and be an entertainer or do comedy bits. Like there are people that aren't conventional comedians, but they do bits in how they was it the guy that eats yummy food and throws his glasses? I mean, he's doing it. He does like comedic bits. He tries to do funny timing and like interact in a way that's entertaining and funny and that kind of thing. Um, so Jordan Stallion, I think is that yeah. And so you got all these people now that have this encouragement by the internet and society to attempt these things, which I think is really cool. Um, of course, it could also pigeonhole you because I do wonder. Jordan the Stallion guy seems like a good guy, but I wonder if he ever thinks like, how long into my life can I eat stuff and with my glasses across the table and you know maybe it doesn't bother him, but like I feel like there's the more niche things get, the more some people are only known for such a specific thing that, and that's the downside of it, right? There's upsides and downsides to everything. Where I'm, was I driving today? I think I was thinking today or yesterday just how things seem to more or less kind of balance out. Again, it's new challenges. We have new challenges, new struggles, new issues. And I'm not someone that's necessarily like technology will figure it out. Technology will fix climate change and fix wars and poverty and all that stuff. That seems to be a bit of like a God replacement. Like just believe in the market or believe in technology, believe in science, and we'll be saved. Well, the salvation will be. I am not that always optimistic. But it feels a bit again like kind of God replacement. Just pray and things will work out, kind of thing. That being said, um, yeah, yeah, like there's a lot of new suffering. It has reduced old suffering, old types of suffering in a lot of ways. Um, I don't know. I don't. No, I started off with like movies would be the main. Oh, oh, oh! No way! Hey, welcome. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to like click on find out who's in the chat, but hey, welcome. Whoever's in the chat, welcome. Um, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I was like still kind of talking to as if like there was no one here, but that's the way to do it, right? Talk as if no one's listening. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining. Um, yeah, if you're feeling up to it, I'd love to hear you in the chat. Just to, but yeah, or I don't know. I don't know how this works. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Wild West for me it is anyway. I know this has been going on for years now. Have got it all figured out. This has been totally people know exactly what you got to do with this stuff. I watched a couple of videos before starting, but I'm still very much like I like to just kind of ignore good advice. Just make all the same mistakes over again that could easily have been avoided because other people have gone through it. It's kind of like that idea of like some the unavoidable lessons. I think there's some truth to that, and there's definitely some things, and that's why I listened to all the videos I watched leading up to this. They all did still say like just do it, and I think that's true. That's what that's there's not too many other things I know to be like objectively true, but that's one thing I think you got it. That's pretty close to like you just do whatever it is. Building cabinets, running, you know, things like this. You just do it. You do it to see if it's for you. You do it to see improvements and where you can do better or how your style wants to evolve. But you really like just do it, as Shia so succinctly, proclaimed. Uh, yeah, you just got to do it. And it's there's no magic sauce to it. I think why it still feels like such a unattainable bit of advice is because it's scary. It's the unknown, and I mean, even with this channel, starting it, it was just kind of I got into a bit of a car accident. Car accident. It was a self harming car. It was a I, you know I made a goof driving, and so while I was waiting to see if the car was okay, I was like, hey, I wanna like just do this thing, and see where it goes, and And so that was kind of the impetus that I needed. A lot of times in my life, I found I needed that kind of just some, unfortunately, path of least resistance or something. I need something to kind of kick me in the rear a little bit in the fundament. Ah, that's a word I came across recently, which is great. Turns out that fundament can also be used as like a word for the nethers, the behinds, not the nethers. Nethers isn't the butt, right? Nethers is the genitals. I think that's what the nethers is. Maybe nethers can be both, but the behind, the caboose. Um, yeah, so fundament. That's my new favorite word for caboose. But caboose is also one of my favorite words for. Anyway, um, but actually, I wonder if I'm just gonna do a quick checkie here, in case maybe I know the person who's on here. Still going. um, yeah. Actually, this has been kind of chill. Maybe I will upload it. We'll see. I know there's like a way you can kind of edit it a little bit before you put it up, but no, we're doing it just raw, as it is. Oh, it's honest. It's more honest that way. Well, if you're looking for honest, this is definitely the most honest with the just the setup the way it is. Um, but yeah. Oh, where was I going with that? The fundament. Why was I talking about fundament and kicking the? Oh yeah, yeah. Just like um, that's what's you just got to do it. You just got to do the thing, and that's about life too. I think a lot about when people talk about what does it mean to live a life more fully. People are like, I want to live my life. I want to quit this job because I want to live life. Where I gotta move here because I'm tired of stagnating here, and I want to live. I'm like, what is living in the way that people mean it? And for me, I think it's very much doing a lot of regular Joe kind of stuff, which is like having some kind of occupation, a thing that you do to hopefully benefit people, be of service in some way, earn a living. I know some people have taken issue with earn a living. I know it's kind of like a, should we? Back in the day, people didn't have to earn to live. But anyway, things were better in the hunter gatherer days, I suppose. Maybe, I don't know. There were different struggles back then, right? It's a trade off. We don't have some of their struggles, and they don't have some of our struggles. But anyway, uh, so you'd have some kind of occupation, and then you'd see friends, you'd develop relationships, you'd perhaps go places, you'd perhaps work on things, build things, get better at things. You'd reflect, you'd learn, you'd grow, you'd get hurt, you'd fall, you'd make mistakes, many mistakes. But yeah, I think living the way people talk about, I want to live, is really trying to be as present as possible and to take it in as it comes, instead of like stuff being thrown at you, life happening to you, and you're just numbing yourself to it. You're trying to avoid it. I think the most you can do to live, because some people think, oh, it's about like doing extreme sports all the time and skating down, to those videos of luging or skeleton, where you're on a skateboard and you're going dangerously fast down mountains, and maybe that's living for some people. I don't think you need to necessarily do that. um but I think it's really just, you know there's a lot of stuff you have to go through in person before it really makes sense to you, before certain books click, and before certain poetry speaks to you, and before certain song lyrics jump out at you, I think, and that comes from living, getting into relationships, romantic. You learn a lot about yourself from that, spending so much time with one person, seeing them in all different situations, having to work through so many different things with somebody, and how the world changes because you're doing that now, and constantly just taking the inputs and archiving the data, to use all these kind of, I don't know why computer terms, but you know and then adapting and learning and just experiencing with the presence where you're able to also, I think, being fully human, right? It's like, again, you don't have to live it up, whatever that means, but experience the full range of like the emotions, being able okay to be like, "Ah, I'm really feeling, sad about how, the my favorite male lady retired and now I don't get to see them anymore." Like it's like because that's gonna be something if you did develop some kind of however you develop some kind of friendship or something, or just making a huge mistake, but then finding out later that can be something that then you can use to help inspire other people. But it's a very humans, I think, want more than we're really designed to handle or to have. Humans are pretty simple in the sense that it's like you go through certain stages of life. First, you're learning how your body works, and learn how to actually like apply it so that you can like climb mountains effectively or whatever. I don't know, but and then you're generally part of some kind of society. You form bonds. Maybe you reproduce, and then you hopefully in past times you grow older. Other things become more important to you. Now you're more about passing on the torch and continuing on legacy, wisdoms, traditions, knowledge, skills, And as much as humans clearly are capable of a lot of complex desires and imaginations and, designing technology and societies and things, when it comes down to it, though, living wise, like someone living a life, I think it's pretty simple in terms of like, did I experience things? When people have regrets, it's really it's like that they weren't true to themselves. So you don't necessarily have to be doing a lot of dangerous, I think, or risky things. If you're true to yourself, being true to yourself, I think would just be you don't even always have to be so good at being constantly present and in touch with, you know, the world and your feelings and other people's feelings and other people's thoughts and your thoughts. But to be always, I guess, doing your best to be kind of becoming more aware and um and not even that you have to keep accumulating the skills and wisdom and stuff, because then that's where you get into this race of, I saw a thing recently that was like, oh, why are you addicted to self improvement or something, something like that. And it's like, well, because I mean, the society kind of pushes you to be addicted to that kind of stuff, because it's like otherwise you'll fall behind, whether it's like keeping up with technology, how that works. I mean, look at me. I barely know how this is working. So you're kind of forced to even do a lot of more basic things now. It's like, okay, if you want to pay for food, a lot of times now you have to know how the app connected to your bank works on your phone. You know, so you're kind of forced to keep learning in that way, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But also, you hear from advice from people, when it talks about like, oh, the problems with dating or something is like, okay, well, the best you can do, say as a man, is to just like keep improving yourself so that you'll be noticed. Basically, it'll be easier for you to, and that also doesn't seem like a fix, because then it's like, oh, just become above average in something. It's like, well, not everyone can be above average, and that's the whole point of averages. Like, so it's basically like just telling a few people, or like you all have. It's a zero sum kind of game in that way. I don't know where I got on that, but like, yeah, it's kind of like, why are we all addicted to self improvement? It's because we've all forced each other to be on this like massive like self improvement rat race. There's like a self enlightenment spiritual rat race, and there's a I think about that. Like what is it? Ram Dass talks a lot about, and other people I'm sure talk about like the traps, the spiritual traps you can fall into. And I think you think yoga is your way to enlightenment. You think meditation is your way to enlightenment. You think psychedelics is your way to enlightenment, or and all these things can become back now into a trap of, oh, you've gotten very good at it. Then you start to think of it more in terms of like a skill that you're better than other people. It's an ego thing comes back, or but I think all these things can be traps, not just spiritual traps. I think um that being said, I think there's a reason why it's hard to not get more self-aware, not get more intelligent, not learn more knowledgeable, more emotionally intelligent, more skilled at something, and it not affect then how you interact with other people. Because who was I talking to recently about, as you, oh, we hit the hour mark. Whoa. As you get better at anything, it does make conversation, relating to people, um, playing guitar, doing math, chess, running. Oh, yeah, that's right. There's a friend of mine is really into, like as a cross country skiing. He's very good at it. He can go 40, 50 kilometers. I can't. And so he's saying he's stuck in the, so good on him. Like that's an achievement. But he's stuck in this kind of space of, well, most people are not able to keep up with me there, but then it's still not really what the pros push for and do in terms of speed and distance. And a lot of people are in that. I find myself in that space with a lot of things too, where you're in that in between where you have a passion for something, so you get really into it. Most people are not as into it, but you also can't, do it professionally or whatever. So you don't have your other friends or people that can really be at your level, so it's not as exciting and stimulating. But you also can't really take it go pro. I mean, you could, but there's a lot of things you can't do more than like one or two things professionally, to that degree, that skill, right? And so, um, yeah, I think a lot of us that, and so it does affect, uh, relationships, how we relate. Um, yeah, and that's just one of the things about being human, I guess. As you get older and you go through that stuff, and you find yourself in those in between transitional kind of, too skilled or knowledgeable and something to kind of really enjoy yourself amongst people that just dabble. You're more than a dabbler, less than a connoisseur, or less than a pro, less than a virtuoso. And there's a kind of grieving in that. Yeah, you can find there's a kind of sadness there. There's a kind of accepting. But then again, I don't know. It's trying to think, because I also think about, people that are friends that are like, Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, two great writers. I'd say I mean, I'm going to say C.S. Lewis. I like a lot of the stuff he writes about just like life and philosophy. I don't know if I really got into his like fiction and things, but this is another example. Two other friends that are musicians, whatever. Is it awesome all the time that they could just both just be like jamming all the time and they're both really good? Because I don't know. Because I think you start to develop such. It's like when the Beatles got to a point where they all wanted to do their own thing. It wasn't necessarily they broke up for any one reason. It's like you got to an age where they matured enough and they got a strong enough sense of their own taste that they, you know, um, kind of just got too, they split off too much in what they wanted to do. And I think that happens naturally. I think in a, again, it's a trade off with like, more individualistic versus collective. 'Cause I think like in much more, tribal societies, there'd be music, uh, chants, drumming, but even in like simple guitar instruments or, and, but they play for the collective. I think they'd play their local folk songs, and maybe they never felt any need to excel. It's a thing I go back and forth on with like societies that encourage excelling in things, and I think there's something to excelling and really pushing yourself. And you can push society forward, that's great. You could push yourself forward and you could really live a life that you're proud of, I guess. But there's the downside of excelling. That's where I guess I just don't know. It kind of reminds me of some line by, what's it, Zizek, Slavoj Zizek, talks about in some interview or, public chat, where he's saying, the thing with sayings or philosophies is that you can basically find a way, you can contradict anything. It's like where he says like, the early bird gets the worm, but whatever it is, the turtle wins the race or whatever. Like you can kind of find something that contradicts, and it's kind of a true saying. There are times when uh it's like slow and steady wins the race. That's it. Slow and steady wins the race, but the early bird catches the worm. So you're like, well, do you be the first one Yeah, and it's like kind of depends. It's context dependent for so many things, but so many things can be true. Some people have gotten, say, success by just grinding and just putting stuff out, maybe it's say it's YouTube or whatever music, and they're very prolific and they put a lot of stuff out there. And then other people, they just put one random video up with their iPhone and boom, and they're like, okay, I guess I'll continue with this thing. It's just kind of nice that there's no set way of, but yeah, I think it takes away a lot of the I don't know. I don't know. I think there's just there's so many ways to do anything. Um, I guess that's why I'm trying this, because I'm like, at the very least, I can take an hour or two out of my day, and I mean these thoughts go in my head anyway, so I could might as well just like I could just record them, and that's something to leave, you know, for posterity. Um, yeah, what time is it? Maybe I'll go. What am I going for? Where did I start? I started at 4? Did I start at 4? It was past 4. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I'm going for. Oh, maybe I'll go for it. Do I go for an hour and a half? Do I do that? Maybe I'll go for an hour and a half. Ah. Let's try it. Let's see. But yeah. Thanks for. Sorry, I didn't even notice when you joined the chat there. But thanks for sticking around for whatever this is. But oh, now did I say like, okay, let's go till for an hour and a half, and now I'm like 23 minutes left. Can I do it? I know I can do it. Should I do it? That's the thing. I ate too much. I know that. I also haven't worked at all today. I guess I do that after. Yeah, I'll wrap this up and then post it, I guess, and then go driving for a bit. Evening drive, just cruising on down. I don't know. And then people think about how we're in a stimulation. We're certainly in a stimulation, but are we in a simulation? Um, I don't know. It'd be kind of weird to make a simulation where you end up developing your society and technology to a point where then you could put people in a simulation. Simulation in a simulation? Why though? What would be the purpose? It's tough. It's frustrating when people have plans that are so past what would make sense to. It's kind of how they talk about like, us versus ants. And our machinations, I'm sure, seem totally nonsensical to the ants. However, we like put our hands to block them from moving. Why are they blocking my path? And then why are they pouring water on the ant? Or however, ants. I don't know how they think of us. Do they remember when we're stepping on their anthills accidentally? Most of the time, it was accidental for me. I remember growing up. I don't remember it happening much now. There was one point where like there was a lot of sand near where I grew up. I don't know why it was so sandy one year. Maybe we brought some sand in for some reason, and there was anthills everywhere. All these little like holes, kind of like inverse nipples everywhere. And you're a kid. You're kind of trying to play games where you're trying to avoid it, but also you step in a couple, and that could be imagine pretty much like a nuclear bomb event for the ants. What do they think about us? Do they look up and they notice they can really conceptualize that we're just a very big ant, in a sense, right? Could we conceptualize, another beings, because we're not different dimensionally to the ants. So it's not like, oh, they can't really perceive us or conceive of us because we're operating on different dimensional planes. Just we're very big. We could look at very big creatures crushing our cities, and it's like, oh, they're just really big creatures that are attacking us. What are we going to do? Why are they doing this? We could still probably figure out, oh, they want the space for themselves, or they want to take over the resources. That's something we would do. It's something we have done. I get it. So, how interdimensional, multidimensional would someone have to be? And there's so much more on a different plane, playing fifth, sixth dimensional chess that we just couldn't conceive of their machinations, why they're doing what they do. I mean, it's kind of happening to a degree, or like, because I wonder sometimes what, like, I was going back to that guy that I picked up with the Uber trip that I realized I never really, I never really mentioned why I brought him up, because we got into talking about, the state of the world and the way things are kind of going, and like, why is it, with the cost of living, and all these kinds of things, and the main talking points that you hear about a lot on podcasts and things. AI, future of work, future of society, future of war, all that kind of stuff. And and I was sharing with them, like, I mean, sometimes it kind of feels like, the powers that be kind of want to push people back into like a serfdom, which kind of aligns with another thing Yanis Varoufakis was talking about. I mentioned him earlier, is how he talks about, like, we're not even in whatever is called capitalism now. You could argue capitalism never really functioned in the way theoretically that's been talked, that it's defined, but we're in like a techno feudalism now, neo feudalism, whatever. Uh, and that kind of checks out on in ways, of course, of like, yes, we kind of like rent out the land, the virtual land from the landowners, okay, the landlords, true, but also kind of feels like going back to, in terms of people's status in the world, where in feudal times it's like it was very much, there was no middle class. Was there like a petit bourgeois of sorts? There were tradesmen and guildsmen, there were guilds and things, there were skilled craftsmen and stuff, I suppose, but I don't know if they were necessarily considered, maybe they were above peasants and serfs and stuff, sure, maybe. But um yeah, it feels like everyone's kind of okay, there was a weird anomaly of like this middle class idea. Let's kind of just stop with that, and let's push everyone back down to kind of like serfs and elites. That seems to be what, because I'm trying to figure out, like, why else you got all these people worrying about income inequality and lowering birth rates, and all the other issues that come along with income inequality. They're doing nothing about it. Then I'm like, it feels like they want to say like, oh no, this is bad, but we're pushing for that. We're betting on that. We're hedging our, you know, we're wanting people to kind of go back to where like most people just like are just subsisting, like just getting by. You Maybe it's not the case, because there's so many variables at play that it just happens to be going that way, where lots of people don't, want to go back to that, but they just feel like their hands are tied. Like, what do we do? They've resigned themselves. They're like, oh, we just, there's too many different opposing forces that are keeping those that could maybe policy makers or what have you, you know, change things up. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if this is one thing that's just worse. How I was kind of saying earlier how a lot of things are not better or worse, they're just different. One thing that does seem worse is just like the state of activism. Like back in the day, activism, I mean, it was tough. I guess maybe people just aren't pushed enough yet to really make activism like their full thing, their full-time job, or people are worse at, like organizing, like people's social skills are worse and they don't have the I don't know what it is, but like activism now is so online, and it feels just so half baked a lot of times, whereas like, but maybe it's still effective, and maybe it's more effective in ways than it was before, where it's like, I guess there was that whole thing where a bunch of people online bought stocks of like GameStop or something, and that really like showed issues in the whole like investment stock thing, because then it shorted, or a bunch of people that were betting against GameStop lost a lot of money. So that was like a pretty effective kind of activist move. So maybe, again, maybe like anything else, it's not better or worse, it's just different. The state of activism has taken on different forms, and maybe the in-person boots on the ground activism less effective now. But you can have more. You got to use the digital space more. So many things are forced onto the digital space, you know. And I mean, this is kind of just a lot of my, observing these things. I don't know. I'm not too into the activist spaces. I think they've always been tough to navigate because I think it does come with a lot of ego and grievances and pain and trauma, and that's why people are doing the activism in the first place. A lot of times we need that push because of life circumstances. So it's one of the tougher places to. It's tough to organize people in general, just to get people together for like a fun event with no pressure, let alone, I always say that with like, when people would say, oh, I don't respect that person at all, that director, movie filmmaker. And I always respond with like, I might not really, their movies might not be to my taste, but hey, we're bringing it back to movies. Great way to bookend the, I love a bookend. We all love a bookend. To bookend this kind of this stream, started with the intention to talk about movies, and here we'll end it. Yeah, with movies, shoot, I bookended it and was talking about, and lost my train of thought because I was talking about it. Why was I going to talk about movies? State of activism. Oh yeah, that's right. It's hard enough to organize people when there shouldn't be much hassle to organize them. Like, hey, let's all go out to drink. Let's throw a party for someone, and but so if a director manages to actually even complete a movie, the mere act of having to get hundreds, maybe thousands of people all working on this thing, you have to deal with lawyers, you have to deal with accountants, and sometimes, yeah, politicians, military. You have to maybe like rent military equipment. Sometimes you have to, certain movies, you got to deal with so many people that have nothing to do with making movies, and then of course all the people making movies, the extras and the casting and the costume and the hiring and firing all the time and on the fly thinking. So to finish a movie takes a certain level of like showing up every day, commitment, like showing up in life, you know. That I'm just like, I respect someone for just doing that. I'm not a big Wes Anderson fan in terms of his movies, but he makes movies. He completes movies that are watchable. Well, it's arguable that can be watched. You can go see them in theaters and stuff. He, from start to finish, completes a movie. Kudos to him. Most people, that's a lot of commitment, a lot of he does. He writes the scripts and everything. A lot of creativity, a lot of just gumption. I like the gumption, and gumption will always go a long way for me. Having the ambition or the chutzpah, or just the go getting it. So yeah, okay, maybe I can fill the last 10 minutes or so of movie talk. Been rewatching some of the old Disneys. They're so good. Makes me it's like, what a time we had. We didn't know how good we had it, you know. Watching like Treasure Planet. I started tearing up the last time. That happened like last week or 2 weeks ago. I was watching it. Me and the old battle axe. Me and the wifey. First time her seeing it, and I was getting. It was the waterworks were getting turned on. And it's always an emotional part, of course, the part I'm talking about. Between Long John Silver, Jim Hawkins, near the end. It's great. And yeah, I don't know. And then I've been watching some of the other old classics. And yeah, I don't know. Not that like there are still actually a lot of great movies coming out now. But I don't know why I just don't have the drive. I used to love watching movies in theaters. Theaters arguably have gotten better because they've had to. More comfy, more space, know what. I feel like you used to really share, the armchairs. Maybe not quite. They had like the two thin armchairs kind of like glued together. So you usually kind of had room for both, but I feel like now it's like it's no issue. You got the lazy boy recliner. Everyone's got one. No issue with that, you know. I feel like the movie screens are smaller though. Is that just me? The chairs are bigger and the screens are smaller. Maybe the screens aren't smaller. Maybe I sit farther back than I used to. I don't know. But um, yeah. What am I gonna say? The movies. Apparently, there's like 4 Avatar movies out now or something. I've only seen one. I was scoffing. I was full on scoffing at James Cameron for thinking he's gonna make like seven. I was like, come on, man! It took you like 10 years to make the. But he might actually accomplish it now. I feel a bit, you know, feel a bit foolish, made the fool for the fact that doggone it, he might actually that crazy man might actually do it. All the power to him. I'm happy for him. I don't know why. Still, he's making. Why do you got to make so many of them? Are they? It does kind of feel like he just. It's more about the technology. Like, okay, for this one, we're gonna try this, and although is that really a bad thing? Maybe he's like, well, before AI completely takes over stuff, I want to at least like play with some of these new toys, and you know, I don't know. It's weird because like to make seven of them and like so much money in it and the technology. I think they have a theme park, an Avatar theme park or something, but which should I don't know if it's just like a forest or, but it's just a park. But uh, it feels like it's one of those weird ones where like maybe there's some fans. It just kind of feels like there's so much investment in it, and it's just like unlike other ones where it's like there's one movie that everyone really loved and then it became this massive phenomenon IP. Avatar is kind of the opposite, where it's like, yeah, you kind of just have a powerful IP, I guess, and a reason to have a park just because you've committed to making seven massive, blockbuster type budget movies. I don't know. I don't know, but let them do it. If people like, you know, you know, but maybe I'll go back and watch the. I wonder if the first one would hit. No, the way it first did, because I was blown away. I don't. I know. No shade. No shame. I was blown away the first time I saw it. I was pretty young too at the time, and I was like, I remember being like, "Whoa, that was nuts! I'd go see that again." And then I remember my friend, my old going way back friend. He was like, "Why? Wasn't that good?" And I was like, "Well, I'm like, I wasn't like, oh, man, I wasn't like, but I'd go see it again. It was quite an experience." And it's funny too, because like him and I, we just totally disagreed on movies because even the like kind of not throw away, but like that was just meant to be pure entertainment, not meant to be particularly artistic. We even agreed on like the slop, basically, like which just like throwaway entertainment slop is good slop. And then a lot of the stuff he liked, I was like, oh, oh. So, and there were signs that that friendship is not going to last forever, and that's okay. Not all do. Most don't. Relationships. It's a weird. That's another thing where it's like not better or worse, but different. You know, I've met more people in my life now that, again, for most of human time, you'd just know like 100, 200, couple, 300 people. Then if you met a rival tribe or something, and if you got along peacefully, then maybe you'd get to know another 300 people. But you wouldn't really have interacted with like thousands of people. You know. So now on top of us seeing so many people online, but like, with my job, I've picked up, I think I'm at like 12,000, 13,000 passengers, like pretty intimate space with a lot of different people. And so there's ups and downs there. It's like the ups is um, expands your experience of different people and the human condition and what humans are like, what they can be like and how they are. The downside is, you just get so much less time with any one person, any one couple group of people, right? Back in the day, you could really get to know your tribe much more intimately. You probably have all these full tribe banquets and celebrations and funerals and weddings and blah, blah, blah. And it's tough to know because I'm like, I was never someone that enjoyed kind of the extended family, everyone getting in your business and everyone kind of being judgy. But I don't know if that was always the case. I want to believe that back in the day, before there was this really much reason or need to compare yourself so much to other people. Everyone had the same hut. It goes back to my thing that I say a lot. I'm like, I don't think humans were really meant to be able to handle this level of like material disparity in terms of possessions and ownership and things. I don't think we were able to handle it because back in the day, way back in the day, we all had one hut with all had a bow to hunt. I don't know. All had, we all shared a lot of the stuff. Two, three pairs of clothing, whatever it is. I don't know. Trapping gear, and not much else. And so the reasons to feel envious or competitive were minimal, I think. Yeah, this person's just a naturally better swimmer. That person, ended up getting hitched with that person that maybe you kind of had a thing for. But for the most part, there wasn't much. Now it's just thousandfold more things, more reasons to compare yourself. And yeah, I just why we all seem so, like we all seem to have pathologies and mental illnesses and stuff. It's just very much where I'm at is that humans have not kept up with how society is shaped. And also, maybe more importantly, I don't know if we should, like if we need to, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot of modern society is kind of a facade. And what I mean by that facade, I mean, it is kind of phony, yes, but also kind of a facade in the way where I think facade can also mean kind of like where it's just the front of a building that isn't necessarily a full functional building. Like I think they might also call facades those sets for movies that they set up where it's just like it looks like it's a full building, but it would fall over because it's cardboard or whatever. I think they also call that a facade. So in a way, I also think society is kind of like that, where it looks like it's a whole town set up, but really there's nothing really there, and they could blow over. Like it creates this sense that things are really, but humans still have the same needs. They operate the same way, and I don't know if a lot of it's well. Again, it goes back to the better or worse, not better or worse, but different. Modern life has given us a lot to think about. I don't know, a lot to argue about. There was so much less to argue about before, I think. Maybe life was really boring. Maybe life was so peaceful, though. Life is not peaceful now. It can be. It's tough. It's tough to find a mind, like to get into that place where like you can feel peace in this world. I think that's why everyone knows there's something off, but they can't agree on what. I also don't know if humans also necessarily needed that much conflict. They say, oh, humans will all create conflict if they need it or because they need it. I don't know. Or it's just because there's a lot of conflict going on and it feels like that's why humans create it. But, what came first kind of thing. All right. Well, we're reaching an hour and a half. Wow. What a time. Did it fly by? I don't know. Might have crawled by. That was, the first, I think for a test, I think that went okay. I know I can at least fill hour and a half of rambling, and it's a bit too rambly, perhaps. I don't know, but I think that's live streams. I think that's my style. That's what I like doing. Like with the videos too. I'm trying to kind of shape them, mold them a bit more. Like structure wise, build a bit more structure. But I always like to kind of keep it pretty off the cuff and just where my mind goes. That's what I enjoy. So thanks to to the other person who unless it's two people, like I'm not sure if I count as one and then there's two, so there's one other person besides me, or if I count as zero and then that two up there is actually two people joining this. I'm not sure, but either way, there's one or two people that have joined this with me, so I appreciate that. Thank you, and hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. And you know what, maybe I'll see about doing this more, and I'll try to maybe do I keep them shorter and then I can kind of stick more to a specific thing instead of just like I need to fill the time, so just talk about whatever. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It'll hopefully change and evolve and get tighter and better, and that's all we can hope for, I guess, right? All right. Thanks again, and Sally forth. Sally forth. I don't know. Till next time. Take care and have a great year and good luck to you. And Okay.